What's going on, everybody? Almost Counts Collectibles here, and in this video we're actually going to get started on our custom Divatox figure for our Lightning collection line. Now these two figures I have in front of me here are the ones that I chose to pick between to use as the base for this figure. I got Valkyrie here because her outfit was not that far off from a Divatox look. And then I got Madame Hydra here, mainly because her face looks a lot like Divatox. So I'm definitely going to use her head. I'm going to have to customize the hair and go with different hair. But after some contemplation, I think I'm actually going to use Madame Hydra's body as the base as well. Now, I did like Valkyrie because her boots were pretty close to Divatox. She had the little skirt thing going on here. Her torso outfit really isn't that far off. She has a cape, but Madame Hydra is just going to work out better for me. Now, when it comes to the arms, Madame Hydra pretty much already has everything I need for the arm. She has like these very high up gloves, and that's exactly what Divatox has. So those just need to be painted. Her lower legs right here can actually just be painted black to include the knee, and that will look almost exactly like her boots. Now ideally I would have liked Valkyrie's because she has more of this heel look going on, which more closely resembles that of Divatox's, but Madame Hydra actually stands up better because her feet are actually a little bit larger. So I'm going to go with Madame Hydra here. Also, most of the leg just needs to be painted because it's skin. And I'm really not going to be able to do that with Valkyrie because she has this really hard, shiny plastic. And she's got this like chain belt looking stuff molded onto her legs that I would have to grind down and smooth out and then rough up this plastic to get it to paint well. And I really don't want to go that route. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the cape, I'm going to remove the skirt, and I'm actually going to use Valkyrie's hair. I'll explain that more later. But her hair should be able to peel off of there. And we're going to put that on Madame Hydra. I'm going to have to cut her belt off. Obviously, I'm going to have to paint skin color up here. But with a few accessories and a little bit of paint, I think this is going to turn out well. And we're going to have a pretty decent looking Divatox figure. Now, when I was looking at the cape, obviously Divatox has the more flared up neck thing going on around her cape. She's got the little shoulder pads. And this cape, really, I mean, she doesn't really have much of shoulder pads at all. So I'm going to have to add that. But she doesn't really have much flare up around the neck for her cape. There's a tiny bit there. So I was digging through some of my figures. I always keep custom or, figure fodder and figures that I'm never going to use, I don't collect or display, to potentially use to make custom figures. And I have this demon character I picked up not too long ago. And his cape is actually perfect for this. However, I think it's just going to be too large to make it work. He's more of like a 7 to 8 inch action figure, whereas Madame Hydra here is much smaller. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that cape work, but I think I will take it off to check. His skirt thing, loincloth, belt thing that he's got going on here, I might actually be able to cut this and better fit it to her as well, but I still think I'm just going to go with Valkyrie's and customize it just a little bit. Because Divatox is just for display, you're pretty much only going to see her from the front. It doesn't need to be perfect all the way around. So we've got some options here to check stuff out. I also dug out some fodder that I have over here. I have this cape that I can use for material to add to the skirt sides if I need to, because Valkyrie's skirt, it pretty much is just the front. It's got this like belt chain piece hanging to the side, and that's pretty much it. And Divatox has a little bit more of a solid skirt all the way around. However, this front piece will turn out well, I think. So I've got pieces over here. I also have this custom hood piece I took off of another figure. I think if I cut the top off, I can fit it around her neck to look like the flared up part of the cape. So we're just going to go ahead and get started on doing what we need to do to these base figures, and we'll figure the rest out kind of as we go. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is cut this belt, these holsters, off of Madame Hydra. Now I'm just going to make a slit right down the back here, so if I want to use these on a different figure in the future, I can simply put it on and just glue it back together. So we're going to go ahead and take our X-acto knife, and I'm going to just make a little cut. All right, we have that off. Now the next order of business is going to be popping these heads off. All right, so Madame Hydra's head here looks a lot like Divatox. I think it looks really good. Now obviously we're gonna have to change the color of her makeup. We're gonna have to paint her lips red. We're gonna have to turn this green eyeshadow stuff she's got going on just a little darker. She's going to have a mask on anyways, but this head I think is going to work out great. Now what's not going to work out is the hair, because Divatox always had her hair pulled back in this ponytail, and this is not going to give us that look at all. So we need to separate the hair from her head, and I believe this should just be pretty much glued on here. So what I'm going to have to do is basically pull this off. Now this might be a little easier said than done. I might have to take a screwdriver up in there to help get this off. All right, so pretty much like I thought, the hair was just glued onto the head there, and it pretty much popped right off, no problem. So we have our Divatox head, and we've removed the hair. Now, we're gonna use Valkyrie's hair, because it is gonna have to be cut a little bit just to be left with this ponytail here in the back. And we'll have to smooth down her braids just a little bit, because Divatox didn't have her hair braided everywhere. It was just kind of pulled back smooth. So we'll just have to sand that down a little bit, but I think overall that's going to give us the look that we need and the ponytail in the back, and I think this is going to work. So we're going to have to separate Valkyrie's hair from her head. Now this is going to be a little more difficult, because we have the large ponytail that's glued to the back here, which if we rip this off, we can just glue it back on. But the rest of her hair is probably going to be harder to get off, because I don't have a big section to get something in there that's already separated to pry it off. So bear with me, and I'm going to get this off the best way I can without damaging it. All right, I got Valkyrie's hair removed. It was pretty much glued right up the back here and a tiny bit around the edges. I actually wasn't careful and I ripped it a tiny bit here on the side, but I think that'll be fixable with a little bit of super glue, and then we'll shave it down a little bit because we have to smooth it anyway. And I think it will work out quite well. I think we'll be okay. So our Divatox is already starting to take shape, and I think we're going to be good. We're going to shave some of that down. We'll probably have to paint a little bit just to bring her hairline down a little bit on the sides. But I think this is going to work out quite well. There is... Let's see. Yeah, I think I can fit that in that hole for the most part. I'm probably going to clean this up a little bit just so it sets down flush, because she's got a spot right here and that does not have a separation point, it doesn't look like. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll make it work. No big deal. We are on our way to our custom Divatox, and then we have some hair to use. We've got a head to use for something if we needed to, I guess. And then, like I said, with the body, we're going to have to paint skin all the way down to here. Way down to here. Paint her gloves, paint skin on the legs, paint these black, and then throw the skirt on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get this cape off of Valkyrie here. It should just be connected. So there's a peg in here that connects to the back, but then there should be a little bit of glue. So we're going to separate this. Now that it's kind of down to the end here, I'm just going to use my X-acto knife. Boom. I'm just going to give it a little cut to separate from the body. All right. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to get the skirt off here. Now the easiest way to do this, I could maybe try to heat it up to expand it enough to slide it off of her body, but I'm not going to deal with all that. I'm just going to cut it straight down the back, and then I'm going to glue it back together with super glue, because that should be plenty thick enough for glue to hold to it and actually hold it onto her body. So I'm just going to make one straight little cut up the back. All right, so this is actually this is actually connected to her torso all the way around. So I've got my cut, but it goes all the way around. I'm gonna see, how can that be? All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna cut all the way up to the top here. This might work out better than I thought. We might be able to use this whole thing. Hold on. I know you guys, it's probably kind of hard to see, but this whole piece was rubber, her whole torso here. So I just cut straight up the back, and this is gonna pop off. So yeah, I mean, this might be a blessing in disguise here. All right. So I can actually, all right, let's see here. How are we going to do this? Brainstorming. So this isn't going to wrap all the way around. Her torso's not small enough for that to wrap all the way around. However, I might not need it to. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to that is crazy. I think I'm going to cut this off about where I thought the skirt was, just to give her the skirt part that she needs. Now, I do have some other material here. This is the bottom part of the Kingpin's coat that I cut off. But this isn't gonna be, I need her skirt ideally to come down just past these lines on the leg. Ideally, the skirt would come down, yeah, to at least that line or lower. A little bit lower, ideally. Yeah, so this is going to have to go, but I might be able to use this section as her mask, because I'm going to need something that wraps around the face just a little bit for her mask. So I'm going to cut this all the way around to go about where the skirt should have gone. And then I'm going to cut a little angle up here to look like the flat piece on the front. And we'll see what we can make work here. Because this just isn't going to work. Actually, I'm going to try one thing before I do that. I'm going to try cutting this lip off. Alright, that did not work. I'm going to cut this skirt. Alright, now that I've cut that where I want it, I'm going to, it's kind of thick right here at the top, and I want it to set as close to her skin as possible. So this lip right here that you're seeing, I want to take that off there. All right, we've got that pretty thin. All right. I am pretty happy with that. Now, on the front here, we're gonna have to cut up and down. I think that'll be good. I think I'm gonna leave it just like that. Now, when I put this on, and it goes where it's gonna go, which is gonna be about right there, this line right here on the leg, above that is gonna be all painted black, so that it will still have the appearance of a skirt that's going around. I might even, contemplating on cutting this off, but I think I'm gonna leave it for now. I might like the look of it, I'm not sure. All right, next order of business is we're gonna clean some of this glue off of the head. I think this will work out pretty good for what I need. All right, now what I'm gonna have to do is cut away the hair that I don't need. And she's just got a little ponytail coming out the top here. All right, and this is what we are left with. So it just needs to be cleaned up, and I think we'll be golden. All right, I'll form that later, but this is pretty much what we're gonna be left with Divatox's hair. And I think that's going to be pretty close. Obviously, we're going to have to cut this down, make it a lot smaller, skinnier. I'm actually going to go ahead with my X-acto knife and just clear some of these braids and just kind of smooth them down. I was going to sand it, but I ain't trying to do all that. All right, so right here we have this little peg on the cape, and on the back of our figure here, she actually has a hole towards the top that's in the perfect spot for this to attach. So that's where we're going to attach this cape. I just have to modify it a little bit because this hole isn't the same size as the hole kind of should be. So what I'm going to do is just shave a little bit off the sides of this peg. Not much, because I still want it to have a nice tight fit. All right, let's see if that does it. That will probably do it. We're going to have to super glue this down. But yeah, it's going inside there now, so we're good. I'm going to cut this the rest of the way off. I wonder if this would make for a better thing. So I'm actually going to use this hood, turn it upside down, cut the bottom out, and these sides that come up and flare out, this is going to be for her cape collar, I guess you would call it. Yeah, I think this will work well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut off. I'm going to start by just cutting the top off all the way around here. All right, so we're kind of left with this. And I think that will work well. We're going to have to cut this bottom part out. I'm going to go right on the inside for now, where it kind of starts to bow out around the edges. Okay, I think that looks pretty decent. We'll probably have to make that a little bit smaller. And we'll have to see what it looks like with the head on there. I think we'll be able to make that work though. So that will take care of the collar. And then we'll just need some shoulder pads.
All right, so I think I figured out what I'm gonna do for her shoulder armor. What I did was I took that top torso piece that looked like this, that I cut off the top of the skirt, and I simply kind of cut it in half right here at the middle. Not perfectly, obviously, I didn't get it right down the middle, but I'm gonna use these as the shoulder pads. Now, they're not gonna be a perfect representation of what her shoulder pads look like, but I think they're gonna look good and I think I can make them work. So they actually have this little indention right here all the way around, if you guys can see that, which will fit right under the lip of the front attachments of this cape. Because all this is going to get painted red to look like her cape. So these are going to get glued right underneath here, and then I'll have to cut them just a little bit to give them a little bit more of that look. But I think this is right here, this is what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and get these put on here for her shoulder pads and let those dry. And then I think this is pretty close to where we want it. This is going to be her collar to her cape. I might need to cut just a little more off of it, but for the most part, it's shaped correctly. It's about the right size. So we're going to go ahead and get this stuff glued together. Paint's coming along nicely. Just one or two more coats and I'll be able to go ahead and begin painting her outfit. But I want to get her kind of together before I start putting the final touches on paint. And yeah, she's getting close. Now the masks, I've been working on some prototypes for masks. I cut out a piece of plastic material, which ended up being pretty close. It's a little smaller than it needs to be, and it's not the perfect shape, but it actually fit over both of her eyes correctly. I did a few little drawings and cutouts on this piece of cardboard. I'm just trying to get the right size and design for how I want to do the mask, and then I'll pick the material and then get it cut out. So the mask will be the very last thing that we do for Divatox, but right now it's coming along nicely, and we're just going to go ahead and get this glued together. All right, well, here's where we are so far. We've got a couple coats on the cape and the shoulder pads. We still need just a little bit more. I might do another coat of the gold, a tiny bit of touch up around the collar of the red, but it's pretty much where it needs to be. It's got enough coats on it to where it looks good. So that's pretty much done. Divatox needs one more coat to all of the black on her that I used. My base coat was a matte paint, so I'm going over it with a gloss. So I'm going to hit all of this with one more good coat, which one more coat should do it. And then the red that I used for the cape is actually a different red than I used initially on her. So I'm actually going to go back over it with this right here, and I'll show the paint and everything that I ended up using for the final coats at the end, and I'll put them in the description. But yeah, she's almost done. The only thing that's going to be left to do after a little bit of painting is her mask. Now, I've really wanted to try and stick with all of the items I possibly could just from the two base figures that I used, in case someone wanted to try and do this themselves. So what I'm going to do for her mask is this arm that comes with the one of the figures. I can't remember which one it is. I'll point it out with a picture here real quick. But this is to one of the Build-A-Figures. And the little shoulder armor piece that comes with this figure, I just ripped it off and I trimmed it up a little bit with my X-acto knife, the piece on the inside. but this is actually a pretty good size to go over her face. So I'm going to trim this up, cut it out obviously, smooth down some of this, and I'm actually going to turn this into her mask. So that's where we're at right now. We're going to go ahead and finish this up. I have decided not to put the little gold part on her left forearm. In some of the, like the movie she had it, I can't remember exactly where, but at some portions of like the show and stuff, it doesn't look like she had it, and then she had it later. It's just a little gold like top part to kind of like a gauntlet for her left hand. But if I do end up doing that eventually, once again, I'll probably use this Build-A-Figure arm, cut out a portion of the like wrap that's around the forearm on here, and I'll peel it off and I'll just paint it and glue it onto her. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do everything but that part for her. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up some of this paint. I'm gonna cut out the mask, put a base coat on it, and she is almost done. All right, real quick. So I've put some of the finishing coats of paint on Divatox, the gloss black, the rest of the red. There's still a little bit left, some detailing of gold on her chest, and just a few other little things. But I just finished carving out her mask from that shoulder piece. And I think it's pretty much where I want it. So right now there's still a bunch of little, it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but there's some little bumps. And I want to take some of that roughing and detailing off of there to make it flat, to make it look more like her metal mask. It didn't have all those little bumps and everything on it. So I'm going to take my Dremel tool to it real quick to just kind of shave and smooth down some of this. And then this will be ready to paint a few final details on her. And Divatox will be done with a removable mask. I'm going to make it to where that you can take this mask on and off. I think it's going to look pretty good. And our Divatox will pretty much be finished. So let's go ahead and finish the mask, and then we'll check back in a little bit. All right, everybody. Well, our Divatox is now finished. All the paint's done. I think it turned out really well. I went with a basic design here for her, like her belly, torso area. There's many different variants of Divatox's outfit. I just went with something basic for now. I might go back and make that more detailed later, but everything turned out pretty good. Even the mask, I think. Now this mask, I want to keep it removable. Right now it's just being held on by tape. Now when it's fully compressed to her face, it looks really well, but the tape that I'm using kind of releases and it spreads out just a little bit. But I want to leave it removable so you can take her mask off. But all in all, I think Divatox turned out to be one of our better customs. I'm going to do a before and after, kind of what the figures looked like. But I just want to talk about real quick what I used to achieve this Divatox. Now, I'll talk about the paints here in just a second, but everything used to make this Divatox came from the two base figures, except for one thing. And that was the like hood piece I used. I'll put a picture of that figure up here, because I actually used that figure as the base for my Babu. But I used the hood that came with that figure, as you saw in the video, to make her like collar thing around her cape. But everything else came from those two base figures. Now real quick, I'm going to talk about the paint that was used. So I used really cheap paints. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people, if you look up custom videos and stuff about figures and custom painting, they will tell you that these are some of the least desirable paints you could use. Now, in all honesty, they're not wrong. However, they still work. And these are like 50 cents to $1 a piece for one of these, 2 fluid ounce containers of paint. This is the kind of paint I use on pretty much
all of my customs because they're just for display. They're for me personally. They go onto a shelf and that's where they stay. If I was, you know, in a business or making custom figures to sell to a client, I would want much better quality, something that's not gonna easily scrape, something that looks really good, that can be handled and can withstand a little bit of wear and tear. I would use a better quality paint. However, for me personally, these work just fine and they're cheap. So, you know, you can buy something like this for 50 cents for 2 fluid ounces, or you can get about a fourth of this or less for like $4 if you go with a much better quality like Testers or something like that paint. But this is just what I use, and that's the reasoning why. Now I also use this little paint pen, which I'm pretty sure I got from Hobby Lobby. And then some of this, once again, some more cheap acrylic paint. This came in a little painter set I probably got for a couple bucks with different colors. This is what I used for Divatox's skin color. But yeah, this is the stuff I used. I'll put it in the description below. I started off using this for the gold. I ended up pretty much going over that stuff with this just because it was easier. It took much less coats. It covered really well. Once again, this was for her skin color, for her legs, for her chest, all the pieces I had to color in as skin. This is all of the red. I used this gloss real red. And then for all of the black on her, I went with this gloss black. Now I went with gloss because her outfit was more of like latex looking kind of material, so it had a shine to it. With other figures, I usually use like a matte paint. Once again, this will be in the description below, and the figures that I used. Other than what you see, I pretty much just used like an X-acto knife as a tool. And that was it. So let's go ahead and look at the before and after of Divatox. And this is our latest custom figure to the collection. We have our Divatox figure. And once again, I think she turned out pretty good. So let's go ahead and take a look and wrap this video up. Appreciate you guys hanging out for the journey of kind of how this figure came to be. I know that the video probably could have been done a little bit better as far as angles and lighting. I usually don't like to do recordings of all the custom work just because it happens over a several day period. I have to step away from it, come back to it, you know, coats of paint have to dry. And some of this stuff you have to be pretty precise with, especially when you're cutting, and it's hard to record that when you're really up close doing it. If you guys enjoy these videos though, I'll do more of them, and I'll definitely get a better setup going if you guys really enjoy it. But we'll see how this video does, if people like it or not. And yep, that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.